Roob, sometimes people are confused or they don't really know the dynamic between us. We've known each other for a really long time.
Have we?
Yeah, I think so.
When did we meet? When did we first meet?
Probably around 2009,
Really?
I would think. Yeah.
Huh. I just remember, I remember what, was it the first time we met was outside this building?
Maybe.
When you were working, we were kind of both working for the Burlington County Times. You were working here
I was
well.
working, I was doing like 2 part-time jobs.
Yeah.
I was working here for the old CSN and I was working for the Burlington County Times, and you were working full-time for the BCT.
But I was interviewing here, and I believe I was doing a video interview with Ben Seidman out in the little plaza by the Wilt statue over there. And you came out of the building.
Hey,
what are you doing here? And I was standing there in front of a camera. And yeah. So now we both work here full time.
That's true. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast, by the way. Roob and Frank, Dave Zangaro. We've been doing this pod together for a while.
Is that right? How many years has it been? 30?
Feels like that sometimes. Remember this pod at one point on this feed, if you scroll all the way back, I think it might be Roob Knows.
Really?
I think so. And that was just you by yourself.
Can you believe that?
That's hard to do a podcast by yourself.
Yeah. During the season, it was okay because there's so much happening. But like during the off season, we just make stuff up. It's hard to do that by yourself. And I did it with Gunner for a while. Yeah. But yeah, we seem to not hate each other enough that it affects our podcast quality.
Yeah. So we thought it'd be a fun topic this week.
How many of our pods started? We thought it would be fun too.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if in practice it will be. But we came up with a list of 10 questions for each other to get to learn a little bit more about each other.
Yeah. And for you guys to get to know us a little better.
Yeah. And some of these, like, I don't know how you did your list of questions. Like some of them are like connected to football. Some are connected to the business that we're in.
I don't think any of mine are Eagles related.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll just throw them out there and then we'll answer them and see what we learn about each other. Might not like it.
This might be the last time we ever do this.
It could be. How do you want to start?
Why don't you shoot first?
All right. My first question for you, and I have 10 here, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
My first question for you is, who is the most influential person for you in your journalism career?
Oh, man. In my journalism career.
You know, it could be another media person, a professor, just somebody you read as a kid, just who shaped your own career in a fundamental way.
Yeah, it's tricky because there really are a lot of people. I think I'm gonna give this. Oh man, this is tough because I don't want to leave anyone out. But I'll go back to like my earliest days doing this. Wayne Richardson, who was our boss at the BCT, I'll give him the early credit because he was the first one to ever give me a byline. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. It was like the stuff I was writing back then was not good, but he encouraged me to do it and he gave me the reps. And yeah, so there are a lot of people, so I feel bad naming one person, but yeah, Wayne was a big influence for me.
Wayne, and Wayne's a guy that we both keep in touch with, and he was the assistant sports editor when I started. Harvey Melman was the sports editor. Actually, there was another guy who was technically the sports editor. I'm not even mention his name, but there was good people there. There were a lot of really good journalists at that little paper, and it's a shame that small papers like that don't really exist anymore, at least not in that form. But yeah, Wayne was.
Man, but like I'm going through the people in my head.
Was there anyone else you want to mention? Or
Andy Schwartz, who was our boss here, gave me my first job.
Yeah, with
then CSN. Our late colleague Jeff Offord used to like sit down with me and like go through my copy. Phil Anastasia was a professor of mine when I was in college, like one of the best ever.
Jeff Offord, I'm glad you mentioned him, and a guy I miss every day. I think about him all the time. He was such a he was such a craftsman when it came to writing, and I loved the way he used words. I remember we would drive back from like Atlantic City, covering like the state basketball tournament, or New Brunswick, or wherever, Piscataway, and we would like read each other our leads in the car. Like we'd be typing in the backseat or whatever. And I knew if I made Jeff laugh or made him like I had a good lead going. Yeah, he really took a lot of care with his writing.
Yeah, very like word placement was so crazy with him.
And just, what he was big on, like the rhythm of the words. He'd be like, all right, your second line's too long. It just doesn't mesh with the first line. So shorten it up to like, if you make it like 4 words, it'll be perfect. And he was a guy I learned a lot from.
Yeah. And Tom McGurk, who I interned with when I was in college. Really helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
We still joke about it. We went to like the first time we ever, like I went out to a high school basketball game with him, and it ended up being like the best basketball game I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah. It was St. Augustine, like won a double overtime on like a half court buzzer. Like, it was insane. Yeah.
Was the game down in Richland?
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
And you've been a big influence on me too. It's weird to say it, but yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it.
It's just weird because you're here.
Yeah. You don't have to say that. It's funny you mentioned the guy who I would answer is Phil Anastasia. Because when I started on the Eagles beat, he was pretty well ensconced. He was pretty well established, and he was so thorough and so complete. He never missed anything, and a great writer. And it's funny. You had him as a professor. I had him as a colleague, and I was intimidated by him. He was so good, and I was starting out, and like he would just. Like I would pick up the Courier Post every day, and he went to the Inquirer eventually, where he did other stuff. He didn't do the Eagles for the Inquirer, but he kind of showed me just how good you can be on this job. And I don't think I ever quite got there, but he was always the bar that I aspired to, just because he was so good. He was a wordsmith and had great ideas. Like he would write stories that I didn't even think of, and I always wanted to be like him.
I once contributed a story to a book. It was like a compilation. It was called Covered Wooden Grandstands. And it was about like semi-pro leagues, like baseball leagues in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
And I remember I did a story, and I was like kind of proud of it at the time. I was like right out of college. I did this story, and Phil submitted he had a story in there as well. I remember I read his, and I was 2 graphs in, and I was so mad. I was like punching air.
Yeah.
It was just so much better than what I could have done.
Yeah. And he was a guy where, like, if we were covering the same thing, like, you knew you had to be at your best or you'd be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so just being around him was great. We became really good friends, and he's retired now, but he's still, like, I'll get a text from him once in a while with some like buddy quote, about something. But it's interesting. He influenced both of us in a big way.
That's good. All right. Your first question from me: when did you start playing the piano, and how did that come to be?
I started playing the piano when I was 5. I was living in Teaneck, New Jersey, and my best friend at the time lived next door to a piano teacher on Oakdean Avenue there in Teaneck. And so, like, if we were in his backyard, like, I guess did you have best friends when you're 5? Maybe I was 6,
Sure.
But his next door neighbor was Irene Taylor, who was a piano teacher, and she had a piano school, Taylor Williams Piano School, and I would hear music coming out of there. I was like, man, that's really cool. And I told my parents I wanted to try to learn, and so they went down there and signed me up, and I started taking piano lessons next door to my best friend as a little child, and then I studied there, and I wasn't very good. I played recitals, but like I wasn't playing really good stuff for until I was about 13 or 14, and I realized I could actually play music I like instead of just whatever I got assigned.
Sure.
And I think when I was about 14, I got like a Yes songbook. I was like, my favorite band when I was a teenager was Yes. So I started playing like Perpetual Change and Yours Is No Disgrace and like all these classic Yes songs on the piano. And that's when I started getting better, was when you play music you like, you're gonna be more invested in it than playing some corny little whatever they were signing. So but yeah, I started early, and I'm glad I stuck with it.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. When did you start playing piano? Did you ever play an instrument?
I play guitar enough to
Okay.
like. I never like took lessons. I just kind of taught myself. And see, guitar for me is fun because it's like I can have one. It doesn't take up a lot of space. You can play it by yourself, and it works.
Yeah.
Whereas like, some instruments, it's like you kind of need to be like if you're playing the drums, you can play by yourself, but you kind of need other parts. Whereas like the guitar's fun. I can just strum here and there.
Yeah. If you play the French horn, you can't just like
It's tricky.
sit in a subway station and make money busking.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could, but yeah. All right. So my turn to ask you one, I believe.
Sure.
What was your greatest athletic moment, either as a child or in a men's league, as a kid, high school sports?
Man, my greatest athletic moment. In-town hockey. This ends sad because it was in-town hockey, and we were in the It was like I think it was a double elimination for the championship. So
what's your age group here? How old are you?
It was like my last year in town. So I was like 14, 15. And it was double elimination. So you had to,
oh no, you won the first game.
No. This is the worst thing. We were in the first game, and, I was like possessed, and I scored 2 goals in like 5 minutes. And then there's like 10 minutes left. We're down 1. Like 10 minutes left in the game. We're down 1. And a thunderstorm rolls through. And they called the game. They just called it and said we lost. And I almost fought an adult that day.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I'm still bitter about it.
Why didn't they just delay it or postpone it? Or
I don't know. I'm still upset about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember playing in a senior league game. So I guess we were 13, 14 baseball game. And we were playing, I'd made the all-star team. It was the only all-star team I ever made. And we played like 15 games that summer, all over like North Jersey. It was pretty cool. And we were playing in a tournament, and the pitcher on the other team like broke his arm throwing a pitch, like shattered his elbow.
Jeez.
And they called the game.
It's wild.
And like, I was trying not to be like, I wanted to be sympathetic, and I felt bad for him, but like, you don't call the game because a guy got hurt.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like, don't you have another pitcher?
You think so? You don't.
And we never made up the game.
How about you? Do you have a great athletic feat?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I ran the Broad Street run a few times. I was really proud of that. Right down
Broad Street.
The first time I ran it, we finished at JFK, which was really cool. But I think my favorite was in a baseball game, senior league baseball game. My first 4 times up, I was like just locked in that day, and I hit line drive singles to left center each time, like identical, just like shots to left center. So I come up for the 5th time with a chance to go 5 for 5, and the guy grooves one for me right where I like it, like just like high and just over the outside part of the plate. And I take a mighty cut and hit a screamer headed for left center field, and the shortstop just goes up and snags it.
Oh man!
But I still had a 4 for 5 that day.
Still pretty good.
Yeah, I was locked in. That might be it.
Okay. My turn.
Yeah.
How'd you get your start covering the NFL?
Oh, it's a story. I can't really tell the entire story. But I was at the Burlington County Times. It was during the 87 season, during the strike. I started covering the strike and the strike teams, and doing like more newsy, like news side stories on the players picketing and all that. And I would go to the games and write about the replacement players. And so that was my first exposure to covering to the league. But then our beat writer was Phil Sheridan, who I just saw Saturday night, the Guided by Voices concert, Ardmore Music Hall, one of my closest friends. And so we had a columnist, and then we had Phil. So the columnist did all general sports, and we had Phil covered the Eagles. So basically the columnist, I don't want to get into why he lost his job, but he did.
Okay.
And Phil was named the columnist for the chain, and we didn't have an Eagles writer. I was covering high schools basically. And I remember I was in the hallway at the BCT right outside the library. Remember where the library was? That like
Mhm.
the building's gone. It's a shame, but Harvey, the sports editor, says, "You want to cover the Eagles?" And I said, "Sure."
And that was it.
And I'm still doing it
Huh.
37 years later. But that was it. It was just he said, "You want to cover the Eagles?" I went down the next day and started.
It's funny that you kind of got your start with the strike, though, because I got my start
That's right.
in 2011 with the lockout.
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd ever like covered football, and I would go up and watch the.
They were over at Lenape, was it?
No, they were in a municipal field in Evesham.
Oh, okay.
And I would just go up there, and I was like asking to do it, and no one else was going up there, and I would go up and write a story and get a byline, and then it became the point where like I'd kind of earn reps in training camp, so I'd go to training camp and just work my way up from there.
So the next NBC Sports, another strike or lockout, and you're on your way. I'm gonna get away from sports here for the next one. What's your favorite place that you've ever visited?
Oh,
well, you're a big traveler.
Yeah, I am. The one trip for me that kind of always stands out, and it'll be tough for me to beat, was I did a trip to Uganda solo. It was like always a goal for me to go see the mountain gorillas. So I got a chance to do that, but then saw like 4 national parks in the country. Really had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Just crazy different culture.
How long were you over there?
A few weeks. Yeah. It was a good long trip. Went solo, which was like a lot, but the people were incredible. Had a bunch of stuff lined up to do when I was there, but yeah, saw mountain gorillas, saw chimpanzees and a bunch of monkeys, and then all the like game animals, and it was cool.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
and what year was that? Do you remember?
But not that long ago. It was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you? You have a favorite place you've been?
You know, I just love Northern California, Napa, Sonoma, that whole area, the redwoods, hiking around the redwoods, the coast, Pacific coast up there. There's some really remote, cool areas you can drive up and down and hike around. I think that's my favorite place. And, you know, I went to Europe as a kid and saw some really cool stuff. I haven't been overseas that much, covered 3 Eagles games in London. But I just love seeing this country, whether it's, the best part about covering this team was seeing all the different parts of the country. But Northern California, for me, there's just something about it. It's like being on another planet sometimes. And that's probably my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
My next question is one about the business. Do you enjoy, and how much do you enjoy, the other parts of your job that are not writing? Because like we got into this to be writers. You worked for a newspaper, but then you ended up working in radio. You've done TV. You do a podcast now. Like, what was that process like, learning all those different mediums?
Interesting. I like them because they're challenging and they don't come, like writing has always come easy for me. It's always been really natural. I've never, people talk about writer's block. I've never had writer's block. But the other stuff isn't natural. I guess radio was the first thing I did. And that's hard. Like when you haven't done it, all of a sudden you're by yourself. I remember getting my first solo shift at WIP, and I'm sitting there in the studio. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. What if I don't get any calls? What am I going to talk about? And I probably had like 10 pages of notes that I never even looked at. But once the mic goes on, you just talk about football and it's fine. But the same with all this stuff. I mean, TV, I'd never done TV. Why am I on TV? What's going on here? Those things have been good because they're challenging. And I always like challenges. And I would have been perfectly happy to just write my whole career. But I think it's really fun doing all the other stuff. And I think to have any success at all in this business now, you have to be able to do a lot of different things, diversify. So I think now I just enjoy everything. I love doing the podcast.
I love the podcast too, because there aren't many places where you can really get into stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I love doing TV because it's like it's TV. It's funny, like it's the lights and everything. But
Yeah.
like we can't talk about Gottlieb Ayedze on TV. Like we can get into the backup offensive
Right,
lineman here.
right.
We can get into the nitty gritty. I like that part of it.
I'll never forget. I mean, I think it was the first time I was ever on camera. It was up at Lehigh, and there was some sort of breaking news, and the office called. It was a weekend, so we didn't have like a like talent up there. We didn't have a reporter up there, so like you have to go on camera in like 12 minutes and talk for 4 minutes about what somebody got cut or something. And I'll never forget this. It was like 100 degrees. It was one of those Lehigh days. It was like 100 degrees. And every time I was off camera, like they were showing video on the camera, Rachel, our old colleague, Rachel McCauley, would throw me a towel. I was sweating. It was out there. I was like nervous, sweating. It was 100 degrees out. And then as soon as we were about to come back, I'd throw the towel back. And, but yeah, I love writing. It's kind of what I love to do the most, but all the other stuff's really fun. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, it's fun to have new challenges
because then you can like have new things to get better at.
Exactly. And like you end up with this whole new respect for different people in this business.
Yeah.
It's like some of our colleagues on TV are so incredibly smooth.
Yeah.
Like I've had a few Birds Huddle shows where I've like been the host. It's hard to read a teleprompter.
Yeah.
You don't realize how hard it is to like read something on a screen and like make it seem conversational. Like it's a really tough thing. And gosh, we work with some talented people in that respect.
Yeah, we really do. Yeah, that was the big surprise for me was like trying to get your voice the same when you're reading from the prompter or when you're just talking.
Yeah, like sometimes like you can probably tell when I'm reading because I'm locked in on that thing.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's a good question. What's next? Well, this is related to the last question. Where would you most like to visit that you haven't yet? That's really a two-part question, and they're split up by your question.
Yeah. There are a bunch of places, honestly.
Give me one.
I want to go to New Zealand.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's a tricky one because it's so far away.
Long flight. And like, I want to go in their summer, which is like our winter. Okay.
And we don't really have that. Windows really collapse.
Yeah.
So that's up there for me.
Yeah. That'd be a really cool trip.
Yeah. I have a bunch though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always have places. How about you?
I mean, Australia. Same part of the country, same part of the world, same part of the country, same part of the world. I have a friend whose best friend got married to an Australian guy and moved there.
Okay.
And she went down and visited, stayed for like a month. You pretty much have to stay for a while. It takes so long to get there. And I think she just wants to move down there. But, yeah, I think part of the appeal of Australia is it's so hard to get to.
Yeah. I remember one of my biggest regrets is when I was in college, they offered a course. It was like, you get like 2 credits, but it was like a trip to Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji for like a month. And the cost was like $2,000, which at that point for me was like, no way am I affording that.
Right.
I'm a college student. But in hindsight, like, man, if I could have just figured out a way to like, I should have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My turn.
Yeah.
What would your death row meal be?
You got me on death row now?
Yeah.
What did I do?
Something bad.
Why am I there?
Yeah.
My death row meal.
It doesn't have to be like your favorite thing, but like some people pick like a nostalgic type of food.
How do you know what people pick?
Because I think there's like books I've like read about like death row meals
on final meals.
Yeah.
I'd probably go with just a steak, like a nice like peppercorn flank steak.
Okay, that's good.
Baked potato, maybe roast potatoes for that. Yeah, special occasion. Maybe some string beans.
Drink choice?
Iced tea. Final meal, first
that checks
meal,
out.
Every meal.
Yeah.
Unsweetened, fresh brewed.
It's good.
What do you got? What are you ordering?
I go the nostalgia route. I just want a couple of hot dogs grilled, and a can of Coke.
What are you putting on? Just mustard?
No, my hot dog is mustard, relish, and chopped onions. You don't like onions. You're not an
I
onion guy.
hate onions.
Yeah. I didn't need to play this game to know you don't like onions. I've been in the restaurant with you.
It's a good question, though. Yeah. Okay. This is a little different. You might not even have an answer for it, but I thought I'd throw it in there. What's the worst you ever got into trouble as a kid?
I was a pretty good kid.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I would just do like little things. There was nothing crazy. I remember at my one of my first memories, I was like 5, and my cousin was getting married, and I was just being a little jerk, just a little snot all day. And my dad finally lost it and snapped and started chasing me. And I remember like running out.
What were you doing?
I just like,
Yeah.
it was just one of the, like a little kid, just like everything he says, I'm doing the opposite. I'm
Right.
just like pushing the button. And then he apparently snapped. And mom had to like hold him back from killing me. I remember that. There was another day we had a golf club. We were just like chipping, and one kind of got away from me, and I broke a door.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Nothing crazy. How about you? You in trouble as a kid?
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I was staying up in New Hampshire with my family, and I was staying at this camp near North Conway in Albany, New Hampshire, where it's like this retreat, this like family style retreat, and my parents were staying nearby, but not at the same place. My brother and I were at this one place and I had a bunch of friends there. I was 16. I didn't have a driver's license, but I had like a learner's permit, which kind of allowed me to drive around the neighborhood, I guess. But there was a guy there who, he was an older guy. He's from New York, and he owned a recording studio. And I was friends with his daughter, and we had a whole group of people like who were 16, 15, 17. And we decided we wanted to get a lobster dinner back up in North Conway. There's a place called the Lobster Trap, but nobody had a license. And I kind of might have exaggerated my status and said, I have a license. Fred Miller had this little sports car. I wish I remember what it was, but he said, oh, you can take my car. So it was a stick, which I didn't know how to drive. I learned very quickly how to drive it. Probably stalled a few times, and drove a good 15 miles out to North Conway with maybe like 7 kids in the car in this little sports car, out the windows, lying horizontally, and got to the restaurant and couldn't get the keys out of the car, couldn't get out of the ignition. So I had to leave the car running on the side of the Route 16 there. Had a good dinner, had some lobster, and start driving back. And somehow I'm at a red light, and my parents saw me, who were staying in the same area, but not not at the same place. But the crazy coincidence, they were at the same light, like next to me, and I just pretend I didn't see him. Maybe they won't see me. Drove back, gave Fred Miller hey Fred, I can't get the keys out. They waited until we got home, and I got grounded for 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't drive to school. Like, I got my license. I had to bike to school, take the bus as a senior. I guess a senior.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I drove 7 kids in a sports car that I didn't know how to drive, and I couldn't get the keys out to lobster dinner in New Hampshire without a license. Yeah. So that was probably it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Last one here, and then we'll take a break. What's one of your favorite stories you've ever written?
Oh, well, there's 2, and I guess, the Nick Foles story the day after the Super Bowl, when he talked about how he wants his story to inspire other people. That was really, I just looked into a question that, really meant a lot to him. And, that story was probably number 1 on that list.
Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, first for you, I remember your Jason Avant
Yeah.
Thanksgiving story. I really like that one.
Yeah. He talked about growing up in Chicago, dealing drugs as like a kid.
Yeah.
And I did not expect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was
Had to be the zoo in Boston.
oh no, that was fun. It's not up. I mean, it's just a fun idea. I was gonna say I wrote a Brandon Graham feature when he went back to Detroit in 2015. It was cool because he had been around for so long, but no one had really ever gotten the full details of his kind of story growing up. So that was fun to do.
Cool.
All right, let's take a break. We have more questions on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. All right, we are back, and Roob, you're up with a question for me.
Okay, this is a two-part question.
Okay.
What was the first concert you ever went to, and what's the favorite concert you ever went to?
First concert was at the Spectrum. It was
I'm guessing Bon Jovi.
No. Okay. Same first letter.
Beatles.
Bare Naked Ladies.
Oh.
I was a big fan as a kid. My sister took me when I was like 12.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a fun time. I remember the first time I smelled something funny in the air. I went, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it?
I don't know. I still don't know. But it was a cool moment. It was cool. My sister took me
to
my first concert.
Okay.
Best concert. Man, that's really tough. Best concert.
It could have been Fayed here on Thursday. It's a pretty good one. Fayed.
I think my favorite was, and it was a Camden show, which I don't even really like.
Yeah.
The whatever it is called now.
I don't even know the name.
But
this week,
it was the Allman Brothers opening for Tom Petty.
Oh wow.
And it was fun because it was like my group of friends, like we were in the music, we liked the Allman Brothers, but like a lot of people were like hanging out in the parking lots, but we would get in and gosh, they were so good.
Yeah.
And in a way, they like, I don't want to say they blew them off the stage, but you know, they're just like musicianship out of those guys was insane. So, but that was probably one of my favorites.
Okay. I saw Tom Petty twice at the Man.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last time around, saw him here.
What was your first show?
My first concert was Yes.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden.
I love the Garden still.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good place to see a show.
It is. Yeah. That's where I saw like my first 20 shows, like Yes, Genesis, ELP, all those bands. But yeah, it was Yes on the Tales from Topographic Oceans tour. They played all of Close to the Edge and then all of Tales from Topographic Oceans. And then they encored with Roundabout. So yeah, that was my first one. And my favorite was probably Guided by Voices. Saturday night was the 33rd time I've seen them, but the best was New Year's Eve, 2004 at the Metro in Chicago. They played about 3.5 hours.
Did you go to Chicago for the show?
Yeah. And not only did I go for the show, I had to be here the next day. I had to be at Eagle they weren't at the NovaCare. You know, they were. Yeah, it was 2004. They were at the NovaCare. But I remember I flew through Charlotte. I had like a 5:30 flight. The concert didn't end till like 1:30 in the morning. I had a hotel room out by the airport. I basically just went there, got my stuff and flew back and was at the NovaCare in the media. Well, we weren't in the media house yet. We were in the NovaCare. We're actually in the building. We were allowed in there without getting shot. And I was there by like 10 o'clock the next morning.
Wow.
Like saying, what just happened? But that was probably,
that's funny that you did that. And I also had like a Chicago, I had a wedding in Chicago and came back for training camp.
Yeah. I still can't believe you did that.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Very
I don't know how you did that.
All right. Next one. I'm up.
Yeah.
I'm up. What's one hobby that you've never done, but would be interested in?
That's similar to a question I have coming up.
Okay.
That's a really good question. A hobby I've never done that I've really been interested in. I've always wanted to play guitar, and like I tried a couple times, and like piano comes so easy to me and guitar's so hard that I've given up every time just because
okay.
I'm not good at it. And you'd think like there's so many people that I'm amazed by people that are really good at both. Like Brian May from Queen is an incredible keyboard player, but he's an incredible guitar player. And there's other guys like that, Jonathan Ratto. I mean, there's some guys who are so good at both. So I think guitar someday I would really like to just sit down and stick with it.
Okay.
And really try to get it, not good at it, but at least functional at it.
Yeah, I like that. For me, like I've done a little bit, but like I like woodworking.
Really?
And I've done stuff here and there, but I think I could really get into that.
You know what amazes me is people that take up a hobby really late in life and get really good at it. Like I have a friend who never painted before and is now like wins awards for her painting. Like it's incredible. Like these still lifes of like how do you just learn that?
Yeah, my mom is always picking up stuff. She's now like doing. It's not like painting like that, but she like paints on like vases and things, and she sells them, and she does great.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a friend whose son played ice hockey and was in a men's league. Actually, they play at that rink over in West Philly, right by on Walnut Street there, the Penn rink, class of 19 whatever.
Yeah.
And he was playing in a men's league, and his dad had never skated and wanted to play. So he learned how to skate, learned how to play hockey, and played in the league with his son. And I mean, he was in his early 50s when he learned, and they won the championship. And
that's fun.
He said, "I'm the worst player in the league, but
who cares?
I'm doing it." And I just have a lot of admiration for people that take up something late in life and get good at it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yep.
Who's the most famous person you've ever met outside of work?
Oh, outside of work.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I've ever really met anyone famous outside of work.
Really?
Yeah. It's tough to divorce work.
Yeah, and I guess there's like, I'm like if you get assigned to interview, Julius Irving, I would not count that. But like if you happen to see him outside, or at a game or something, and you say hi, that would count. I don't know.
Okay.
So I'll give you some leeway on it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've really met many famous people.
Okay. Like maybe before an Eagles game, somebody walking around.
Yeah, like there's always someone.
There's always some celebrities there.
Met Questlove.
Okay.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Maybe he's up there. Michael Blackson, the actor, would always be hanging around. Got to know him a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never been like a real big celebrity person. Athletes, sure, like that. They're my celebrities. Then it's funny though. Then you realize like some athletes are just on such a smaller scale than actors or musicians or people who are really, really famous.
Yeah, interesting.
How about you?
Well, when I worked in a record store. I took a year off after high school, and we would go backstage at a lot of concerts because our manager knew like we would get passes for these things. I was backstage at Nassau Coliseum, and we met Boston, the band.
Scott?
Not Boston Scott.
Okay.
Boston, the band, More Than a Feeling, Amanda, Don't Look Back. But Tom Schultz, the main guy in Boston, wasn't there. It was all the other guys. They were very nice, but they're not famous. When I was a kid, my parents were friends with a family, and somehow they knew Jane Fonda. Okay. They were friends with Jane Fonda, and we were at a party. We were like a picnic at their house, and I was probably like 12 or 13, and Jane Fonda sitting under a tree there, and like I knew she was famous. I didn't quite know who she was or why she was famous, but I remember going up and talking to her, and she's probably the most famous person I've ever met.
That's good.
Yeah, Jane Fonda. Yeah, Boston or Jane Fonda.
All right, who's my turn?
Yeah.
Pick 4 dinner guests to join you from Philly sports history.
4 dinner guests from Philly sports history.
Yeah.
They have to be athletes, maybe coaches.
No, they'd be coaches.
Anybody from Philly
sports history, yeah. You could be owners, be trainers.
Pick 4 trainers. That's a good question.
You can pick Smarty Jones, the horse, if you want.
I don't know if I'd want a Smarty Jones at my dinner table. I'd go really old school Eagles.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
I'd go like Steve Van Buren, Pete Pehos,
Like a Retzlaff in there.
Pete Retzlaff, and Donnie Jones. No, and
It would be funny.
and then just one, and Kelsey.
Yeah. Oh, but he would probably love it.
Yeah, because I'd want to see Kelsey interact with those guys.
Mm-hmm. I think I told you this.
Maybe Jim Ringo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite moments covering the Eagles was in 2015. Brian Westbrook went into the Eagles Hall of Fame with Maxie Baum.
Yeah.
And it was just fun to hear. Like, I was standing there while those two guys were talking, and it was just cool to like see the admiration from Brian for what Maxie had done.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. That's a good one. How about what's your approach to that? How would you go about it?
Yeah, I definitely I like the idea of like learning about I might pick fun people though. Like if we're doing an all fun one, like we're just going after a laugh.
Yeah.
Like maybe pick Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Charles Barkley, Brandon Graham. I mean, I'm not going to say much in this dinner. Charles Barkley, Brandon Graham. I'll try to pick one from each. Who's a Philly would be fun.
Maybe like Utley or J-Roll or Ryan Howard or something like that. Or you want to go earlier?
Yeah, maybe like a Ryan Howard would be fun. Then I need a hockey player. Yeah. Rod Brendamore, just because he's my favorite player of all time.
Villy Leno.
All right. You're
up. What would you be doing if you weren't a sports writer?
Gosh. I always feel really lucky because I knew from a pretty young age this is what I wanted to do. And I feel lucky that I knew that, but I also feel lucky that I've been able to do it. I would be doing something in the communications realm. I don't think I'd be great at just like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I don't think my brain works like that.
Yeah.
I think I'd maybe be writing, or I'd be like doing PR, or I'd be doing something in that realm.
Okay.
You?
Probably something in music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either, I mean, I'm probably not good enough to be like in a band full time, but something, in working at a venue or promotion or
working for like a record label or
something like that. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
If you had to do a podcast with one player you've covered,
okay.
So say I get the boot tomorrow and they're like, any player you've ever covered, you get to pick Dave's replacement. Who would you pick?
Wow. Former Eagle player. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Any Eagles player you've covered.
Okay. Any Eagles player I've covered. I mean, I noticed that Jason Kelsey's pretty good on his podcast, but I'm not gonna, that's too easy an answer.
That is kind of the layup.
I think how about Connor Barwin?
Yeah.
I think he'd be great because he's got such a wide breadth of knowledge on a lot of topics, but he's really analytical when it comes to football also. So you could go in any different direction with him. Big music guy, really smart, well-spoken. I'd go Connor.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Cause like you could say Kelsey, you could say Chris Long, cause we know they've done it. They're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Connor Barwin's a good answer.
Yeah.
He'd be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm supposed to say one?
Yeah, I guess. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You go Carson?
One episode, sure. I want to get to the bottom of some stuff. I'm trying to think like who would be fun. I want a fun.
Just that you wanted four fun guys at your dinner. Now you want a fun guy at your podcast.
All about fun here.
Dave's a big fun guy.
Not a mushroom.
Whose band was that? Jack Antonoff, right? Wasn't that his band Fun before Bleachers?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Vinny Curry.
Okay.
It'd be fun.
He was just to practice the other day when he was there. I guess it's my turn to ask you one.
Yep.
Okay. We're getting down to the end of these.
Everyone's like, thank God.
I know.
How long is this going to go?
Give me your worst travel nightmare. That like your worst travel experience.
Ooh, okay.
Flying, probably airport, whatever.
So I have one.
Check it into the wrong
was
hotel.
A bad thing, but it ended up being a good thing.
Okay.
So put a positive.
Earlier, you had a good thing. It ended up being a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was the hockey.
Yeah. I went to Indonesia, and I had to book my flights separately. Like I had to, so in order to get a cheap flight, the cheapest flight I could to Indonesia, I had to fly to Toronto. So I booked a round trip from Toronto, and then I booked a round trip from Toronto to my final destination in Indonesia, which I forget what the name of the town is, but I had to do 2 separate ones. And with the time change, I got a little screwed up.
Oh no.
And on my way back flying into Toronto after this long trip where I look like a caveman. I hadn't shaved, like I'm big beard. I'm probably I've showered, but I'm dirty.
You haven't shaved and big beard are the same thing.
Yeah, I know. But I was trying to explain. Real bushy. All I wanted to do was go home.
Yeah, get some sleep, get a shower.
Yeah, so
I'm nice meal.
Flying in Toronto for what I think is a 2-hour layover.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 26-hour layover. And I realized it in the air, bought Wi-Fi on the plane just so I could WhatsApp my mom and say, well, I'm the biggest idiot that ever lived. And then I get to Toronto thinking, well, there's the same flight today. There's spots on it. Let me see if I can change it. And it was like $800 to change it. And I was like, I'm not going to do that out of principle. That's more than the flight cost.
Yeah.
So I had some points. I got to the closest Marriott I could, took the same flight the next day that I thought I was going to be on. And then after a good night's sleep, I woke up early with the time change, took the light rail down to Toronto, downtown, nice. Went to the Hockey Hall of Fame, went up in the CN Tower. So I made a day of it. It was good. But for a split second, I was like, I'm the biggest idiot in the world.
What did you do with your luggage while you were downtown? Were you able to?
I left at the hotel.
Oh, okay. I like the light rail part of it. I'm a big light rail guy.
Yeah. You have a nightmare?
There's a lot of them when you travel with the team for 30 whatever years. Yeah. But the one that I'll never forget is there was only one nonstop from New Orleans to Philly, and it was a playoff game. I don't remember which. There's been a couple down there. I think it was probably the Jeff Garcia game in 2006. And so if you didn't get on the nonstop, you had to it was really a nightmare getting back. So I got on it. It was like a 6 a.m. flight, and we take off. I remember Rich Hoffman was on my flight, and we take off, and all of a sudden we're making this big U-turn. And the pilot comes on and says, we had a bird strike in our engine. We don't think there's any damage, but we're just going to go back to the airport and, land on the field and they're going to come out and check the engine, and we'll have you on your way pretty soon. Yeah. So he made it sound like it wasn't any big deal. So we had to burn off fuel because we were too heavy to land. So we got one engine that we know works and one that we're not sure about. And we're flying around for like an hour and a half burning fuel over Lake Pontchartrain. I think is that the name of the lake down there?
Sure.
Lake Pontchartrain. And
I'm sure you're nailing the pronunciation.
Yeah, I know. So we finally land, but we're at some remote runway, and all of a sudden we see all these fire trucks and ambulances coming out. And the pilot's all there's no big deal, having you on your way. So the engine was right outside where I was sitting, and this is crazy, but they had this thing that not a forklift. What do you call it? Just this device where the guy sat on it and it went up. The seat went up till he was at engine level, and he had a Polaroid camera, and he's taking pictures of the interior of the engine. And then he goes back down. He takes the pictures out, and there's 3 guys looking at the photos, and we see them shaking their head. We literally see them oh no. So then they're we're not going to be able to, we're going to need a little repair there on the engine. So we're going to take you back to then they didn't have a gate. So we had to wait till they finally got a gate, and went back to the gate. And I was stupid because as soon as we landed, I should have known that, I wasn't going to be flying on this plane to Philadelphia. Rich Hoffman, being smarter than me, immediately got on the phone with the airline or the travel agent, booked another flight. by the time I got off the plane and tried to do the same thing, everything was booked. There was no flights. I ended up flying out of New Orleans like that night at 10 o'clock and through like Charlotte or something. And so I ended up getting home like 20 hours after I was supposed to get home, after covering a playoff game the night before and not sleeping. And yeah, so that's my story. But at least we didn't crash.
My next question is one we already kind of did. It was just the best vacation you've ever been on. So I guess we can just skip it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Northern California is my favorite place too.
And I already talked about it.
And Maine. I love going to Maine. I have one more here.
Yep. I have one more as well.
Okay. What's a hobby or interest you have that nobody knows about?
That nobody knows about.
I mean, somebody can know about, but like none of our listeners, the other writers, beat writers don't know about. I don't know about.
I kind of mentioned the woodworking thing a little bit.
Yeah.
That, like,
I've done. Or it could have been something you had as a kid, something you did as a kid.
Yeah. So I have a bonsai tree.
Okay.
That I really take care of. I like, you use the wire and you can kind of like make it, the branches go in different ways. I prune it. Probably one that no one really knows about.
They're probably glad they don't know about it.
It's a little dorky.
I collected stamps. I was an avid stamp collector as a kid. And I had all the books, I collected all the commemoratives and got all the first day covers, at the post office. And I was really into it for like about 3 years. I had the albums. And
what's a stamp?
What's a stamp?
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
So I actually had to mail something this morning. It's just so weird just going to the post office. But
they look surprised when you walk in.
I actually just used the mailbox outside the post office. But I was really into it. And I still, somewhere in the basement, I
think you have it?
I think I have all of my old stamp albums.
That's why I am with my baseball card collection from being a kid. Like, I think they're somewhere in my parents' house.
Yeah.
But all the cards I had are like steroid users that like devalued pretty quick.
That Sammy Sosa card not worth that much.
Yeah, not quite. Last one for me. What band or artist, living or dead, would you want to see who you haven't seen?
Does that include like Chopin? I'm gonna kind of go see Chopin perform. The actual answer is Grateful Dead, and I had so many opportunities to see them. I hated them when I was in college and high school. I just didn't get it. I was a prog head, so I was like, I just didn't. I never opened up my
damn hippies.
I never opened up my heart to the Grateful Dead, and I don't know. One day, I think I might have told this story once upon a time on the pod, but I was at the shore at a friend's shore house, and I got really bad sunburn. And I had a friend who lived. We were in Belmar. I think, and I had a friend who lived in Ocean City who had every painkiller known to man in her medicine cabinet. So I drove down Route 9 to Ocean City, where she hooked me up with some very helpful pain medicine. And she was playing the new Grateful Dead album at the time. It was In the Dark. It was the one that had Black Muddy River on it. And all of a sudden it hit me like, this is incredible music. This is a great song. It was a Robert Hunter, Jerry Garcia, not Jeff Garcia song, both from the Bay Area. And I was like, there's something here. And I just started exploring their back catalog, and very, very late in life, relatively, I became, I wouldn't say a deadhead, but I really became a big fan of certain, like the Garcia Hunter songs are incredible, and they're just great folk music, Americana folk music, and the jamming, I don't need to hear a 40-minute Dark Star or 30-minute Drums in Space, but the Garcia Hunter songs, it's great music. I wish I had gotten a chance to see them. I had chances. I didn't know I would ever be a fan, but that's one for me. But it's very specific. It would have to be like 73 to 77. Like that's I think that's when they were at their best. Keith Gottschall playing the piano. Jerry was playing great. Yeah. Even Bob was a pretty good rhythm guitar player at that point.
Yeah, I get that. That would be cool. Do you think who would be better would Jeff Garcia be a better frontman for a band, or would Jerry Garcia be a better NFL quarterback?
Um, I'll go. I'll put Jeff Garcia front of the band because yeah.
Okay. That's a dumb question. I don't know. A lot of dumb questions. We got through them all though, and that was fun.
I learned way more about you than I ever wanted to know.
I know. People were like, "All right, let's never do that again." If for some reason you do like the podcast, though, please do us a favor: rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that like button, subscribe there as well. We hope everyone is enjoying their summer. Like we mentioned, we've pre-recorded these, and we wanted to give you guys something during this break. So we hope you liked it. That's all I have, though. We'll be back with you next week.